Hello, peeps and peepettes. I am Spec Son of Spec Productions and also of AllAgeWrestling.com. And I want each and every one of you to please take a listen to this. I am going to discuss my top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches of all time on the next edition of Spec Commentaries number 16. It's been a while since I had a Spec Commentaries video out, and on the brink of WrestleMania, literally a few months away, I think this is definitely the appropriate time to bring back this series and also to discuss WrestleMania, my favorite WrestleMania matches in detail. Now, some of these selections that I did choose will surprise some of you, but if you know me and know me very well in regards to my liking of professional wrestling and some of the interest that I do have in regards to the Pro Wrestling Entertainment over the last 20 plus years, you might not find these selections strange, like for a better term. But I have my selections in this binder right here. I kid you not. I spent 35 plus, I'll say about 35-40 minutes on selecting the top 10. I've seen a lot of matches over the course of my lifetime and also in terms of WrestleMania, so narrowing some of these down was difficult. However, I do have the list right here. I've discussed this in the confines of social media, message boards, and also just verbal face-to-face communication with friends. However, this is the first time that I've actually verbalized this on video recording. So it's a happening for me and for some of my friends out there. Either you're going to be making fun of me or you're probably going to be just discussing this up amongst yourselves and also towards me through my Facebook page and also through the official page of Spec Productions, www.facebook.com/BSpecProd. Definitely take a look because this will be uploaded on that site and it will be discussed very, very frequently in a short. But thank you for tuning in to this intro, and I hope that you will enjoy Spec Commentaries number 16 featuring my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. See you there. And hello everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of Spec Commentaries, this time the 16th edition of the show, which has been featured here on Spec Productions for quite some time now. Can't believe it, that literally is going on 3 full years. And yes, only has 16 editions. So I ought to tell you that whenever I'm going to talk about something in regards to pro wrestling or in sports in general, it's probably going to be something significant that's been on my mind for at least quite some time, or something that just conjured up in my thoughts that I wanted to just get off my chest. And right now, I've been thinking about WrestleMania, the showcase of the immortals, the biggest extravaganza in professional wrestling history, bar none. Hosted, operated, and owned by Pro Wrestling Entertainment out of Stamford, Connecticut. Now, there's been several epic professional wrestling shows around the world for several decades, but nothing quite has the pageantry and also the spectacle that WrestleMania can provide to its fans. And without further ado, this topic of discussion on Spec Commentaries number 16 will feature my top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. Now, as expressed in the intro, this is really the first time that I have verbalized my selection of the top 10 best WrestleMania matches of all time on video recording. I've done this on several different occasions. My responses have changed over time, given the fact that I have looked at every WrestleMania on multiple occasions. And every time I see a WrestleMania match or see a WrestleMania card, there's either three different things, three different tiers of layers of emotion, so to speak, that I'm going to have. It's either going to be a horrible show, it's either going to be a good show, or it's going to be a very compelling show that my feelings and my opinions may change over time. And I've seen every WrestleMania on multiple occasions to the point where I feel confident enough to have this list and verbalize it on video and feel really strongly confident in my selection. So, as mentioned also in the intro, this binder right here, this binder, literally my University of South Carolina Upstate diploma binder, cheap plug there for my alma mater. I have the list of the top 10, and I spent about 35 to 40 minutes compiling this list. And like I said before, I feel confident about my selections. And some of you probably will laugh at some of these selections, but even if you do, just remember this is all subjective and just really opinions that I have in regards to these matches. And I'm going to explain my reasonings thoroughly for each of the top 10, provide you some of the backstory in regards to some of these matches if you're not that familiar with them, although you may be familiar with the matches. But to me, the backstory of these matches, and really of any match that you watch in terms of WrestleMania, should have a direct reflection on not necessarily the outcome of said matches at WrestleMania, but it should give you reason for hoping for a good match with a logical story that's being told and a compelling ending that really makes you either scratch your head in amazement or makes you ponder, man, I should have thought of that. I never saw that coming. And I wonder what this match would do to said superstars going forward. Because to me, a WrestleMania match is your showcase. That's going to put you either on the map, or is it going to enhance your career? Or is it going to enhance a storyline? Is it going to enhance a tag team or a singles division? Is it going to make your company relevant going forward in a very positive tone? Some WrestleManias have made the WWE very profitable going forward and set trends for years to come, if not the calendar year to come. And it has also set the company back a year or two in regards to their lack of storytelling, lack of good storytelling, and also lack of good creativity within their storytelling. So, I'm going to discuss my top 10 right now, and I'm going to go in ascending order. So, in descending order. So I'm definitely going to start at number 10 all the way down. And I think that's the best way to do it, because if I start off with number 1, then all of my other selections just won't have the same gravité, so to speak. So starting with number 10, and I'm going to open up this awesome leather binder right now and reveal my list. And this is going to be a very, very neatly written list. I'm just going to show it to you. Boom. I want you to see every bit of it, but I definitely want to bring that list out right now. And also, I'm going to take the time to take off this newly purchased B-Spec Productions hat, which you can get at cafepress.com and also on B-Spec Pride as well. www.facebook.com/B-Spec-Pride. All right, enough with the cheap plugs. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to replace it with my WrestleMania 27 hat. Now, I was very fortunate to attend WrestleMania 27 in 2011 in Atlanta, Georgia. It was a forgettable WrestleMania for some fans out there, but for me, it was very memorable. The entire experience of WrestleMania is something that at least a professional wrestling fan should at least do once in their lifetime. You should always at least think about planning a trip for WrestleMania. If the matches stink, the show stinks, or the show's mediocre, which in my opinion the show was pretty much mediocre, but it's all of the stuff that happens around WrestleMania, and I'll leave it at that you need to attend. But WrestleMania 27, in honor of me attending there and all the memories that I have, I'm going to take my hat off, reveal my pretty much bald head, and replace that with my WrestleMania 27 hat for this occasion. It's just meant to be. Okay. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to mention my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. Now, this list is no way affiliated with WWE. It's not affiliated with the Dangerous Alliance, and it's damn sure not affiliated with IYHWrestling.com. I love you guys, but hey, we all think differently on several different topics. And you've seen my list at times throughout the years, and I've seen your list at times throughout the years. We've agreed, we've disagreed, just like we're going to do right now. I love you guys, but this is not affiliated with anybody. This is just me. So don't crap on anybody that I'm friends with. I'm not sure if they feel the same way about this list. Some people may do, but it is what it is. I'm going to start Number 10 all the way down to number 1. And without any further ado, my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. Number 10, WrestleMania 20, featuring Chris Benoit, Triple H, and the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. It was the main event of WrestleMania 20 in New York City, New York, in March of 2004. It was the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Chris Benoit, the late Chris Benoit, had just won the 2004 Royal Rumble in the WWE, and it's unfortunate with all the things that have happened with Chris Benoit since 2007, since that horrible tragedy that occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'll leave that as it is and not draw off a tangent. But prior to all of that, Chris Benoit was a very revered professional wrestler. Everybody that had watched professional wrestling for quite some time was on that journey with Chris Benoit. He was always reliable. He was always on time. He was always there in his matches. I challenge anybody to say that they saw a poor Chris Benoit match during his career, either in WCW and also in the WWE. The guy brought it 110%, and very similar to Eddie Guerrero, who won the WWE Championship that year at No Way Out against Brock Lesnar for the very first time, having a world's title in his hands. Chris Benoit was very similar. The fans could see that he was ascending to that journey, the journey of greatness, the journey of being not only a big-time player, but being the man in the company. And WrestleMania 20 was his time. And it was also time for Triple H, who was the then defending World Heavyweight Champion, and also the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, to rekindle their feud that had been lingering on for several years prior to WrestleMania 20. Chris Benoit was seeming like that odd man out. But the fans, if you watch that match, were so rooting for him to win because they had been on that journey with him at WCW when he was a relatively mid-card guy. WWE as well, when he was the same thing, relegated to mid-card status for the most part. And watching Chris Benoit win the World's Heavyweight Champion and doing what he did to get the World's Heavyweight Championship in a fantastic counter at the end of that match was very, very worthwhile and compelling. Worth watching. And to me, the atmosphere of that match, the background of that match, and really the match itself from beginning to end told such a great story. It's worth watching. Even Shawn Michaels got really, really bloody during that match. It was amazing to see him get color. It was one of the last few times you'll see that in the WWE in terms of a high-profile match at a WrestleMania. There hasn't been a lot of bloodshed since, and for good reason, of course, with all of the diseases out there, wellness policy, and whatnot. But to me, WrestleMania 20, I'm put that at my number 10 spot. Triple H, HBK, and Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight title. That massive celebration with him and Eddie Guerrero hugging and embracing at the end of the show with the confetti going down is just very memorable and left an indelible mark on me. It's too sad that the events that happened in 2007 has now omitted a lot of those great memories about Chris Benoit from a lot of fans. But for me, WrestleMania 20, that triple threat match was off the charts, fantastic. Have no quarrels at all with saying that was the best match at WrestleMania 20 from my perspective. Okay, also in the countdown, number 9, WrestleMania 3. And this is going to surprise a lot of you out there who really, if you are a casual fan of pro wrestling, this is probably going to be your top match of all time, especially if you lived as a kid during the 1980s and grew up in the 80s, liking the top superstar talent that was in the WWE around the mid-80s all the way on to the late 80s. And I'm talking about probably the most publicized WrestleMania match of all time, arguably. The WWE Championship match between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. The match that really brought all of those 93,173 plus fans to the Pontiac Silverdome in March of 1987. And to me, I put this low on my ranking for several different reasons. But the number one reason why I have this at number 9 and not number 1 or number 2 for most people is because I didn't have those butterflies while watching that match. Now, granted, I was only a couple years of age when this match took place. I didn't see WrestleMania 3 until about 1990 when I was 5, and I had a lot of wrestling tapes that my parents had purchased for me and that I rented as a youth, and saw this match for the first time. When I was very impressed with the gargantuan size of Andre the Giant, and wondering if anybody can beat this guy. And you hear the stories of him being undefeated for 15 years and how the WWE really drove that point home. And then you have Hulk Hogan, who is the WWE champion. At that time, he had been the champion for a little bit over 3 years, which is just unimaginable these days. But he had a very long, successful reign as a champion. Him and Andre have been best friends. I mean, for goodness sakes, if you look at the video clips and the video packages even of that show, you see Andre was there with him with Mean Gene Okerlund, celebrating in New York City, New York at Madison Square Garden when Hulk Hogan defeated Iron Sheik in January of '84 for the WWE Championship. Basically, Hulk Hogan viewed him as his big brother. And in 1986, late 86, you start to see Andre the Giant drift away from Hulk Hogan a little bit and align himself with Bobby the Brain Heenan, who became his manager, his mentor, his pal, his buddy. Basically telling Andre, you've been protecting Hulk Hogan for so long, it's time for you to get a title shot. Has Hulk Hogan ever allowed you to get a title shot? And for some reason, Andre believed and really drove. I mean, that message that the Brain had sent to him really drove him to say, okay, I want my title shot, and I'm going to go directly to Hulk Hogan. I mean, if anybody had seen the promo packages prior to WrestleMania 3 with Hogan and Andre, there's two major things that occurred that really stood out. One was that interview segment with Roddy Piper on Piper's Pit, in which Andre literally takes the crucifix necklace off of Hulk Hogan and also rips his shirt, and you see blood trickle down on his chest, and you see Hulk Hogan grab the crucifix and say, why? And if you wanted a title shot, all you had to do was just ask, man, I would have given you one. And you see Hogan enraged, but he's also like about to break down. That's the second thing. Hulk Hogan vulnerable, the first time anybody had seen that. Second was the press conference between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant leading up to WrestleMania 3. And yes, Jack Tunney was presiding it, and you see Andre basically speaking in French, and then Hogan just says, speak to me in English if you got something to say. And it was just fantastically done. And you have Bobby Heenan, who's just talking like Don King talks during Mike Tyson's press conferences prior to his bouts. I mean, it was fantastic. And it left you wanting to see this match. And you say to yourself, years later, as a kid, I didn't know this, but now looking back at it, you see those promos, though, the building to that match, the months and months of building really paid off, and people were emotionally invested. And as I was watching this match for the first time, and as years have gone by, I've become emotionally invested in this match based on the crowd reaction and also based on the storytelling. Hulk Hogan allegedly kicking out with Joey Morella, the referee at the time, Gorilla Monsoon's son, late Joey Morella, counted 1, 2, 3 or so, we thought, literally within seconds of the match, of the bell ringing through the beginning of the match. And Hulk Hogan trying to body slam Andre. Andre falls on him. The false 3, so to speak, 3 count occurs, and then Hulk Hogan, in really shoot fashion, worked the rest of that match. And as years gone by, he has said that maneuver, attempting that move of slamming Andre, really hurt his back. Whether there's validity to that, I don't know, but according to his book and according to several interviews, that is the case. But as the match proceeded to go, you wondered if Hulk Hogan even really had a chance after that. And he makes this monstrous comeback and finds some way to beat Andre the Giant, slams him, and also after slamming him, hits the big leg drop and pins him 1, 2, 3. The first time, allegedly, in 10 and 15 years that we saw Andre the Giant pin. It was clean. It helped solidify Hulk Hogan. It's one of his most important matches, if not his most important match of all time. Given the circumstances, given the large gate, given the fact that WWE had put so many resources into WrestleMania 3, Bob Uecker was the ring announcer, Joan Hart was the timekeeper, I believe. there's just so much that was going on at WrestleMania 3, and the pageantry, the emotion from the crowd, and you're going to hear me say this a lot during this countdown, combined with the fact that you had a Andre the Giant and a Hulk Hogan. Andre at the top, at the bottom end of his career. Hulk Hogan just ascending really in his prime of his career, remaining WWE champion. That was a very, very indelible mark on the WWE, and it really, really put Hulk Hogan on the map. But I had that at number 9 because to me, the remaining matches on this countdown had a bigger impact on me as a fan, and also to me were just flat out more entertaining. But you can't discount WrestleMania 3 and also the impact Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant had. Very, very important match. Entertaining, but not as entertaining to me as the remaining matches on this countdown. Now in the short, I'm going to count down number 8, 7, and 6, and I'll be back very, very shortly. Thank you. And welcome back to Spec Commentaries number 16, peeps and peepettes. As I was discussing my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time, and I did discuss number 10 and number 9 very thoroughly. The number 10 selection, of course, featuring WrestleMania 20's Triple Threat main event for the World's Heavyweight Championship, featuring Chris Benoit, Triple H, and Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, with Chris Benoit prevailing. And also the number 9 selection, which is arguably one of the top of all time for most people in their countdown, which may be the first controversy of this selection. WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, with Hulk Hogan winning and then propelling the WWE to a new stratosphere for the world. And now I'm going to discuss number 8 and number 7 and number 6 in very great detail, just as I did the previous 2 selections. But number 8 on this countdown took place at WrestleMania 22. And some people may think that I'm absolutely nuts here. And I don't blame you for thinking that, given your opinion of women wrestling. But for me, number 8 on this countdown is the WWE Women's Championship match, WrestleMania 22, featuring Mickie James versus Trish Stratus. Now, it's no joke that I love Mickie James. I think she's awesome. I think she's one of the best things since sliced bread. I think she's the best women wrestler of all time. I think she's awesome. That's Mickie James. That's number 1. And Trish Stratus is number 2. Trish Stratus is one of the most, to me, unappreciated divas, women's wrestlers of all time. People see her as a pretty face. I see her not only as a pretty face, but as someone who cared a lot about the business and wanted to get better and did get better. And this really showed itself at WrestleMania 22. You see the veteran leadership of a Trish Stratus. Now, Mickie and Trish really came around in the business pretty much around the same time, late 90s, early 2000s, whatnot, and really tried to lay a foundation on this industry and wanted to be better. They were wrestling fans first. They wanted to strive to be better. And when they met each other in late 2005 and had the storyline with crazy Mickie James, who was always a big fan of Trish Stratus, obsessed with her, to the point where she wanted to be her tag team partner, wanted to be her best friend, wanted to be her girlfriend. You didn't really know what was going on right there. Kissing her under the mistletoe. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And trying to take Trish Stratus' boyfriend, I mean, or love interest, or whatever you want to call them, date. I mean, these vignettes between Trish Stratus and Mickie James, once again, I'm talking about the vignettes, the storytelling, the storylines that captivate you for these matches prior to their WrestleMania matches occurring, is really what drives you initially. Very rarely you're going to find a WrestleMania match where it's just there, they just announce it, and it's going to be one of your favorites of all time. The storylines have a very prominent feel and importance to them leading up into the matches that make you really care about what you're about to see. And that's what Trish Stratus and Mickie James did for me. I think their match was pretty much flawless, besides the little botch that Mickie did trying to do Stratusfaction at the end. But Mickie James made that match to me, and Trish Stratus played her role exquisitely. Mickie James was crazy. Trish didn't know how to really react to her. Mickie James was on top of her game wrestling-wise. Trish really didn't know how to react to it. And you see Mickie James dominating the match for the most part and looking fine as hell. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it like it is. Mickie James is one hot tamale. Sorry, Taz. I can do a little bit better job of commentating and stealing your phrases than you can just saying yours. I'm sorry. Alright, that's my plug out for Taz. But anyway, Mickie had a great look to her, and she wrestled exquisitely. It was the best match that I had ever seen Mickie James wrestle. And keep in mind, when I say I'm a Mickie James fan, I'm a Mickie James fan. I first discovered Mickie James when she was Alexis Lurie down in Glow back in the early 2000s, when she was with OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, prior to going to the WWE, aligning herself with several different wrestlers under there, managing and also wrestling people by the name of Beth Phoenix and also Eva Maria when she was with Eminem. I mean, I have known Mickie James for a while, but then seeing her on that level, on that stage, she just took it to another stratosphere, so to speak. And Trish Stratus, one thing I can say, and I never thought she was really great at it before watching this match, is the art of selling her moves and really selling the content from her adversaries, from her opponents. I mean, the match went absolutely flawless. You had Mickie James pretty much for the most part acting as a crazy heel, and for her to, the mannerisms and the things that she did in that match just had the Chicago crowd going nuts. And once again, you had a very passionate fan base out there who was cheering for the heel. They were cheering for Mickie James like crazy during that match. They wanted her to win, and she won with Stratus. With her Nick kick, and was able to become WWE Women's Champion. But if you can find the unedited version, which I do have, recorded it live as it was taking place. WWE hasn't released another one yet of this match, because you can't find this on the WrestleMania 22 DVD. Mickie James did something very vulgar and very grotesque that really got me up in my seat, and I marked out very loud for it. But I'll just say this letter a B. Very much worth it. But Mickie James and Trish Stratus from WrestleMania 22, Mickie James becoming the WWE Women's Champion for the very first time in her career, was a very, very memorable moment for me. I'm a huge Mickie James fan, and that's why that's at number 8. And yes, I don't have it as number 1 piece of pizza or number 2. I'm not going to go that overboard. But I really think that this was one of the best matches that I have ever seen at WrestleMania. And it is in my top 10. It is at number 8. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is. It's still going to be number 8 on my countdown. And now I'm going to move to number 7 on my countdown. Drumroll. WrestleMania X7. WrestleMania 17. The TLC match between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys, the current and defending WWE Tag Team Champions at the time of this match. Now, this is the second TLC 2, as it was phrased, between these 3 teams. Now, these 3 teams, to me, and I think it goes without really saying, were the 3 best tag teams during the Attitude Era in the WWE. I know the reason why I say arguably probably is because you can count the New Age Outlaws in that as well. But to me, these were the 3 most sound, best teams of that era in the WWE. They had 3 of the best tag team matches that money can buy, that anybody with some money that wanted to see pro wrestling, and you saw that, you knew you got your money's worth, even if the whole show sucked. Their WrestleMania 16, 2000, whatever you want to call that, their triple, the 3-way match that they had was just fantastic. But that's an honorable mention. I don't have that in my countdown. You also had the SummerSlam match, the original TLC, which to me was just absolutely fantastic. Never thought they could even remotely approach that level of greatness again, and only to see them actually approach that level of greatness and supersede it at WrestleMania 17 X7 in Houston, Texas in 2001. Wow, what a match. You had Rhino, who was a part of Edge and Christian with them. You had Spike Dudley, who was aligning with his brothers, Bubba Ray and Devon. You had Lita, who was aligning with the Hardys. They all are intermixing within this match. You had tables, ladders, and chairs literally going all over the place, spot after spot. Just a fantastic, phenomenal match. To me, stole the show for WrestleMania 17. A lot of people love Austin and Rock. I thought that was a really, really good match, a really great match, but I don't think it was nearly as great as TLC 2. TLC 2, to me, set new standards on extreme tag team wrestling, and you thought that ECW, with the likes of Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten, their stuff would never be surpassed, and all the crazy stuff that they used to do as a tag team. This three-way match was just fantastic with Edge, Christian, the Hardys, and also with the Dudleys. Great storytelling, great building up to the match. Once again, fantastic vignettes, fantastic promos, fantastic matches prior to the match itself. That set the tone for TLC 2. Take it to another level. And once again, what did we see? We saw Edge and Christian overcome. Just like they did the year before at WrestleMania 16. Just like they did before at TLC 1 in SummerSlam. And just like they did at WrestleMania 17. They became the victors and once again became WWE Tag Team Champions. It's a match where you really can't describe everything that occurred, but there was never a bad spot. The one spot that I'll always remember from that match more than anything will be the spear that Edge, I believe, gave to Jeff Hardy. I may be wrong on that, but I think it was Jeff Hardy when Bubba Ray and when Devon and Jeff were literally holding the rope that secured the Tag Team Championship, and Devon fell, and then you had Edge who just speared the heck out of Jeff Hardy. Fantastic match. But that's number 7 on my countdown, WrestleMania X7 TLC 2. Now I'm going to go to number 6, and then I'm going to take another short break. And number 6 on the countdown will be WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match between then WWE Champion Bret the Hitman Hart and also the guy who has been his nemesis for about the last 3-4 years in the company backstage, and also in a very good way prior to all the craziness that would occur a year later. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, who did not have a championship at the time and had just come off winning the Royal Rumble in 1996 and also overcoming a very storyline horrific injury when Owen Hart did the enziguri kick to him on an episode of WWE Monday Night Raw. And he came back, won the Royal Rumble, and seemingly seemed like a completely different guy. The way he was being pushed, you knew the WWE was probably going to give this guy an opportunity to be WWE champion, but the manner in which he became the champion is what's legendary to me. In the WWE, people, or fans, so to speak, had not been accustomed to Broadways, not accustomed to 60-man, 90-minute matches, within the infrastructure of the company. It just wasn't common in the WWE to do those anymore. And really throughout the entire industry as the 90s approached, you didn't see 45-minute and 60-minute matches anymore. It was too elongated. It was boring, considered passé to the modern day fan when things were going very rapidly. And you also saw the influence of internet and social media. Everything was instant, very fast, a quick pace of motion. This was old school, which is why I absolutely love this match. And also it's very sentimental to me because this was my first WrestleMania that I paid my money to actually watch and see. Yes, my money to watch it via pay-per-view as an 11-year-old kid watching this for the very first time with my money watching WrestleMania. It was the first WrestleMania that I had watched live since WrestleMania 10. I did not see WrestleMania 11 live. I actually did not see it on pay-per-view. I actually rented it from a video rental store and saw it that way a few months after it came out. But WrestleMania 12 is very, very special in my heart. Honorable mention to that entire show was that Hollywood Backlot Brawl between Roddy Piper and Goldust. Absolutely phenomenal. Didn't crack my top 10, but it's close up there, definitely within the top 20 confines. But WrestleMania's 12 Iron Man match is number 6, without a shadow of a doubt. The entrance by HBK was just fantastic. The backstory, once again, behind this match. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, good versus good. Who's going to prevail? Shawn Michaels training like a madman to win the WWE Championship that has been eluding him ever since he got there in 1988 as a member of the Rockers, ever since 1992 when he became a full-fledged single star, when he got rid of Marty Jannetty. Just a lot of things changed for Shawn Michaels, but one thing that had always eluded him was the WWE Championship. And back then, 4 years, which it had been 4 years since he became a singles wrestler in the WWE, seemed like an eternity. So much had occurred with Shawn Michaels prior to that. You look at 1995, at the tail end of 95, he gets really mugged by these guys outside of the club and just gets his ass handed to him, so to speak, only to come back and relinquish the Intercontinental Championship. Comes back and wrestles and so-called gets injured again by Owen Hart through an enziguri to the head, as mentioned earlier. Wins the Royal Rumble, so he's going through this journey. Bret Hart had not been the WWE champion for a full year prior to defeating Diesel, who had the belt for pretty much a full year. In irony, isn't it ironic that in 1994 at Survivor Series, he loses the WWE championship to Bob Backlund, who in turn within the next 48 hours loses the championship to Diesel, who would then have the championship for a full year, then lose it to Bret Hart at the Survivor Series in Washington, D.C. in 1995 against Bret the Hitman Hart. So kind of poetic justice there. Everything comes full circle. Bret Hart has the WWE Championship again. But it didn't seem like Bret Hart was the guy carrying the ball during his entire reign. And all of a sudden, he becomes WWE Champion. Shawn Michaels is right back in the picture, and it seemed like, without a shadow of a doubt, that Shawn Michaels was going to be the guy. But you just didn't know. You had to see WrestleMania 12. But if there was one guy that was going to give Shawn Michaels the match that he needed to solidify his legacy at that point in time, and put him on the map as a WWE champion that you could count on every match at every minute, that was the match that did it. They went 60 plus minutes plus overtime. Hold for hold, high fly maneuver after high fly maneuver, ground wrestling. Shawn Michaels and the psychology that he had, literally grounding Bret Hart for the first 10-15 minutes of the match, only to start igniting offense through his high aerial attack. Then you had Bret Hart, who wanted to ground Michaels as much as he could and try to withstand that initial attack, and did so for the bulk of the middle portion of that 60-minute man Iron Man match. Excuse me. Having both guys go back and forth repeatedly, maneuver after maneuver, with counter after counter, reminded me a lot of the WrestleMania rematch between Macho Man Randy Savage and Rick Steamboat. As a matter of fact, I don't think we have seen anything like that, honestly, since the Sting and Rick Rude matches, and also the Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat matches in WCW. So it had been about 4 years since we saw some matches that went that kind of distance and also went that kind of way in terms of countering. It was fantastic to watch. So when I hear people say that this match is boring, I think it's boring because as a fan, you've probably been conditioned over your lifespan to appreciate those quick matches a whole lot more and not embrace really good, strong storytelling, which was very prevalent during the 70s, the 80s, and even some parts of the early 90s as well in pro wrestling, in the era and that pretty much that I have grown to love ever since I was a little child. So them going back and forth reminded me a lot of old NWA Jim Crockett Promotions stuff. Just fantastic. And neither guy got a fall within that 60-man stretch. And Commissioner Roddy Piper, acting Commissioner Roddy Piper, prior to that, had stated when both guys were in the ring with him on the Raw that it must be a winner at the end. Must be a winner. And Gorilla Monsoon, the WWE president at the time, who came back from his hiatus after being attacked by Vader in January of 1996 prior to the Royal Rumble, didn't specify that at the beginning, but at the end of the time limit, the 60-minute time limit, when Bret Hart literally had Shawn Michaels in the sharpshooter after Shawn Michaels was making a ferocious comeback, only for Shawn Michaels not to give up, just was fantastic. Bret Hart leaves the ring thinking that he has retained his WWE Championship. However, that clause that was not mentioned at the beginning, that there must be a winner, is stated by Gorilla Monsoon, that the president of the WWE at the time, tells Bret Hart, you must come back, and it's sudden death. The winner, the wrestler who gets the first fall will win the WWE Championship or retain the WWE Championship. And within about a span of about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, Shawn Michaels hit Sweet Chin Music. Didn't feel like he got enough of it, and then hit him again and got him flush and became the WWE Champion for the first time in his career. And the emotional embrace that Shawn Michaels had with that belt is the last true memory that I can think of during that era where I really felt that that belt means a whole damn lot to these guys, specifically Shawn Michaels. His entire career, you had to think at that moment, looking at that belt and staring at it for as long as he did, reminiscing about all of the journey, the boyhood dream finally come true, as Vince McMahon stated after the match. And also to just see the sheer emotion the fans in the front row had for him and that he had for that belt. It was like a sense of relief. And then he just let all the emotions out, and as classic Shawn Michaels dancing and prancing around the ring, only to stop again and look at the belt, and you see the tears down his eyes. That makes you feel as a fan that, you know what, this stuff may be staged, but man, that is real, legit emotion. And that this guy had to fight and politicize his way to try to get the WWE Championship. And he beat the guy who the WWE had the most faith in from 1992 to 1996 within a 4-year stretch. To not necessarily carry the company, but to really be its face for a very long time, along with The Undertaker. So when Shawn Michaels grabbed that belt and the then 3-time WWE champion Bret Hart walks away in disgust, which was planned, by the way, and leaves the WWE for several months, Shawn Michaels, I think at that moment knew, all right, it's go time. And once again, this match is a great example of great storytelling. And in addition to great storytelling, also perpetuating what the WWE would be like within the next several months. And what we saw was Shawn Michaels basically carrying the ball for the WWE without the WWE having a lot of its prominent stars, while also trying to recreate new stars. It was really, to me, nearing the beginning of the end for the new generation era, and ushering in a new generation that will soon become the Attitude Era. Shawn Michaels was really one of the last remnants of that era. To me, the last champion of the new generation period, putting the final stamp on it. And for Shawn Michaels' credit, he helped carry the company like no other, to me, in 1996. I never saw another guy carry a company like Shawn Michaels did in 96 and try to single-handedly keep it together like he did in 96, when WCW was really nearing its apex and its strength in that year. So for all of that, the fact that it was my first WrestleMania that I had ordered, the first WrestleMania that I had seen since that I had ordered with my own money, first WrestleMania that I had seen live on pay-per-view since WrestleMania 10, and also the emotion that I had as a Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels fan back then, and seeing him win that title. Even now, you just hear and feel the emotion for me. Very awesome night, very awesome show, and I can never forget that match. Great moment, great memory. Definitely number 6 on the countdown. Now I'm going to be back very shortly, and I'm going to count down number 5 and number 4 and number 3 coming up very, very shortly on B-Spec Productions. Remember, you are listening to and watching Spec Commentaries number 16, featuring my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. I see you in a short. Okay, peeps and peepettes, and welcome back to Spec Commentaries number 16, featuring my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time in the WWE. Now, I have already discussed the countdown so far in good detail, from number 10 to number 6, and I'm just going to go down once again on that list of my countdown. WrestleMania 20, The Triple Threat match featuring Chris Benoit, Triple H, and HBK. WrestleMania 3 WWE Championship match, Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant. WrestleMania 22, copying the number 8 on the countdown, WWE Women's Championship match featuring Trish Stratus versus Mickie James. WrestleMania 17 holds number 7 on the countdown, the match to TLC 2 featuring the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys. And number 6 on the countdown, WrestleMania 12's Iron Man match, the main event for the WWE Championship, featuring the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, the challenger, against Bret the Hitman Hart, the then WWE Champion. And now we're at number 5 on the countdown. And without further ado, go ahead and state it. Number 5 on my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time is the Ultimate Challenge between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 6. Now, this is the first WrestleMania, and actually the only WrestleMania that was featured outside the United States of America. Excuse me, the second, because Toronto, Ontario at WrestleMania 18 was also the second. But also on the same pretty much venue, Sky Dome, which is now the Rogers Center in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And amazing, that entire pay-per-view. I remember watching this as a kid live on pay-per-view. Could not wait to see this main event. Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. Two guys who I really liked as a kid. I wasn't that huge of a Hulk Hogan fan, but I absolutely love the Ultimate Warrior and still do to this day. One of my favorite characters ever in pro wrestling. The colors, running down to the ring. And the thing about Warrior is, he doesn't get a lot of credit for this. To me, he got better and better and better as the years went by. I just think that a lot of misconceptions about the Ultimate Warrior exist. I mean, this is one of them. WrestleMania 6 is one of the best matches of all time between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And to me, it was Hulk Hogan's best match ever in the WWE. And some people may say that I'm crazy for thinking that. I don't. Because Hulk Hogan during his matches really didn't carry the matches. He was always the babyface trying to overcome. Well, in this match, he showed a lot of veteran leadership. And to me, I think he probably called that entire match. Just the way it was laid out, the foundation of it. And Hulk Hogan was on the offensive more than the Ultimate Warrior was for the majority of the match, if you take a look at it. And just seeing these two titans, who were babyfaces, who were seemingly on a collision course, because the Ultimate Warrior was the Intercontinental Champion. A championship, for the most part, during the mid to late 1980s, resided a whole heck of a lot more heavily with the heels than it did with the babyfaces. It was very significant. The Ultimate Warrior, to me, was the first babyface since Tito Santana during 84-85, who was really getting a very strong and significant long push as the Intercontinental Heavyweight Wrestling Champion in the WWE, besides Ricky Steamboat, who had to leave early for other reasons. But to me, this match, Ultimate Challenge, really shows you two different worlds within the same kind of realm, so to speak. The Ultimate Warrior being the top mid-card draw for the WWE for about a good full year and a half as the Intercontinental Champion, for the most part, besides the reign that he had lost the championship at WrestleMania 5 the year before to Ravishing Rick Rude, before winning it again at SummerSlam 89 against Rude. He was really the king of the mid-card for the WWE for a while, about a year and a half or so, main eventing Madison Square Garden and whatnot. And then you have Hulk Hogan regaining the WWE Championship after not having it for over a year against Randy Savage at the same card, WrestleMania 5. And a year later, it's challenged by the Ultimate Warrior for the WWE Championship. It's actually title for title. If Hogan won, he would have been the Intercontinental Champion. If Warrior wins, he would be the WWE Champion. And for the first time, literally in WWE history, one guy will be simultaneously the WWE Champion and the Intercontinental Champion. So that right there is history in the making. Another reason for you to go ahead and buy the show. And also, the fact that you have two baby faces against each other is another thing. WWE didn't do that at all back then. And the fact that you saw that, and saw that in a big high-profile match, very, very intriguing. People, once again, I say misconceptions about the Ultimate Warrior. He's not a great wrestler. He sucks in the ring. He's a horrible guy. Has a horrible attitude. I call all of that baloney. I think Warrior was very, very decent in the ring. He didn't need to be this catch-as-catch-can wrestler, Frank Gotch type that's going to do maneuver after maneuver and be grounding you on the mat. And for some reason, when I keep hearing people say, oh, this guy's not a good worker, I'm like, how do you define worker? To me, a great worker is somebody who can exemplify a character very, very well, portray that out to the audience, grab their attention, make them care and make them believe in what they're seeing. Also producing a pretty good, believable, and substantial match that's going to help build your character as the days, the months, and the years proceed. And the Warrior was that kind of guy, just like Hulk Hogan was. And to me, they're both good workers. And you saw two really good workers face off on each other, and one was more experienced than the other. And with the Warrior as the Intercontinental Champion and Hogan as the WWE Champion, both guys walking down the aisle while pretty much everybody else literally was riding this small little cart that looked like a ring cart that was carrying the wrestlers, really driving the wrestlers down to the ring in that huge sky dome. And the reactions from the crowd, the split reactions, the signage, and the fact that both guys told a very believable, a very exciting and compelling match made it worthwhile. And just like Andre and Hulk did, these two had a press conference as well that was really, really good and believable. It wasn't as great as Andre and Hogan's press conference, but they made up for that in the match itself. You wanted to see these two titans face each other and see what would happen. And what we saw was the graciousness of Hulk Hogan to step aside and give the Warrior the spotlight. Hogan was leaving the WWE for a while to film a few movie projects that he had, one of which was Super Commando, and then he had some other stuff that he was doing as well on the side. And during his absence, he gave basically Warrior the ball, and you saw the genuine emotion between both guys hugging each other, and you hear stories later to come out that Pat Patterson had stated recently on WWE Legends of Wrestling showcase on WWE Classes on Demand that he tried to find Warrior in the back after the match and he couldn't find him, and he found him in a dressing room in a corner literally crying his eyes out and stating that, I can't believe this has happened. I'm so gracious and so honored that this happened. And you saw the genuine, for the first time, a lot of those guys saw genuine emotion from Warrior. Warrior winning in the fashion that he did, clean over Hulk Hogan. And if you read the PWI magazines around the time, it was the first time within, I believe, 9 years since 1981 that Hulk Hogan had lost clean in the middle of the ring. I don't know if you believe it or not. I'm not sure what happened in the towns and whatnot, but it makes a lot of sense and believable to me. Hulk Hogan just did not lose a lot, if at all, back then, especially singles matches. And if he did lose, it was probably due disqualification, or it was probably due some shenanigans, such as what happened at the Saturday Night Main Event when he lost the title to Andre on Saturday Night's Main Event back in '88, early '88. So, the Ultimate Challenge was that. It was the Ultimate Challenge, and it was a challenge to me that was met, and it fully succeeded in the challenge that was brought to it. I think WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior gets underrated and undervalued a lot by critics because of the misconceptions by the Ultimate Warrior, and also even the misconceptions by towards Hulk Hogan. Because I think Hulk Hogan showed his veteran leadership that match, his genuine emotion, giving the ball to Ultimate Warrior, and secondly, help calling the match, because it was quite clear he was calling the match during the match. Can't say much bad things about that match, and it was excellently called as well by Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura, who were just absolutely phenomenal from beginning to end on that match. So that's number 5 on my countdown, right in the middle. Can't say a lot of more positive things about that match. And also, Warrior had the yellow IC belt, and he did cut that promo that I thought was really awesome and really cool. Once again, another misconception about the Ultimate Warrior. The guy could cut promos. He was very coherent. If you just listen to the guy and try to take out all of the shenanigans with him going wild, he tells stories and really good stories on his promos. And he told a good story in the ring with Hulk Hogan. Very good match. Very compelling, and it's something that I will watch again right now and still have those same butterflies as I did back in 1990 in April Day. Now we're going to go to my number 4 pick for my top 10 matches of all time in WrestleMania history. And that's going to be, once again, another Ultimate Warrior match. I mean, here we go again, another Warrior match. Once again, I'm telling you guys, he had really decent, good matches in the WWE, so I don't know where all this hate about him being a horrible worker is coming from. Once again, being able to have a great character, exert that character, making you believe, making you emotionally invested, leading to what you do that night, can that perpetuate to something even better the next time. That was the Ultimate Warrior and several of the guys who were over back then. They're over for a reason, not just because of their pretty looks. It's because, or their cool looks with their attire. That's what I'm trying to say. It's about the entire package and whether that character can exert itself out to the audience and make the character believe. Okay, number 4, the career-ending match at WrestleMania 7 between the Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. There's no titles here, but it's just a grudge match pretty much. Randy Savage wanted an opportunity, Macho King Randy Savage, excuse me, wanted an opportunity to become the WWE Champion. And he felt like he was slighted by the Ultimate Warrior prior to Royal Rumble 1991. Warrior's about to have this WWE Championship match against Sergeant Slaughter. Sensational Queen Sherry, who was managing Macho King Randy Savage, basically tells and begs the Warrior to give him a title shot, and he would not do it. She tried to persuade him in all kind of ways. It won't work. So Warrior, runs her off, and for a lack of a better term, just absolutely says, hell no. No way. I'm giving them a shot. And to me, that's kind of awkward because you would think that a champion would want to, a babyface champion would not turn down any challenge, but he wanted nothing to do with Macho King Randy Savage at all. And that wasn't explained. But Savage comes back, and during the match between Warrior and Sergeant Slaughter, Macho King and Sensational Queen Sherry did everything they could to disrupt the Warrior, and they even attacked him abruptly several times. And Randy Savage had a specter right in his hand and literally knocked out the Warrior with it, ran back to the back, and then Sergeant Slaughter capitalized, had a big elbow drop, and 1, 2, 3 became the WWE Champion. And boom, there you go. You have the grudge match, you have the career-ending match. Their feud continued as the months continued, and it led to Jack Tunney signing the WWE president at the time, signing a match between Randy Savage and Macho King Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior career-ending match. And as I give you the backdrop here, the match itself is the reason why this is right at number 4 and could possibly be higher. Probably the best storytelling match since Randy Savage and Steamboat at WrestleMania 4. And there's no coincidence that Randy Savage is involved in this. We had heard stories that this match was rehearsed over and over and over again by Savage, who apparently had a thing about doing that for a lot of his big matches, if not all of them. But it was exquisitely done. Savage had control during most of the match. Warrior tried to psych out Savage through psychology by having tights of career ending, the WWE Championship in the middle of the back of his tights. Savage's face on one of his knee pads and his face on one of the knee pads. It's just fantastically done. I'm just getting chilled right now thinking about it. The false finishes in this match. Randy Savage hitting his famous elbow drop like 7 to 8 times on Warrior, only for Warrior to find a way to not necessarily kick out, but brings his shoulder up as if he still has life, and he does. The Warrior talking to his hands and asking him after he does his big military press and drop slam, and then literally jumping onto his opponent, front body first onto the back of his opponent, and only for Savage to kick out. And then looking at his hands and about to leave and say, "Is this my destiny?" Is this what you want from me? Is this my path? Is this my destiny? And then you have Earl Hebner, who was the official at the time, telling him to get back in the ring. What are you doing? I mean, just awesome. And then you have Sherry going nuts because she knows if Nigel King loses, her career is over and she's done. And she lost her meal ticket, so to speak, with Bobby the Brain Heenan. And then you have Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, their first WrestleMania together, calling the action. Awesome, fantastically done. And then you see the Warrior find a way to overcome and find the answers he was looking for when he was asking, is this my destiny? Finds the reasoning, comes back with even more power. He hit Savage with 3 ferocious shoulder breakers by springing on through the rope. And then after the third one, just laid Savage out onto the floor. I'm sorry, on the floor, but right in the middle of the mat. Turns him over, puts his foot on Savage, raises his hands up, and gets the 1, 2, 3. Wow. You hear it from me. You got to see it for yourself. Absolutely fantastically done. One of the best storytelling WrestleMania matches in history. Then you have, right after the match, Savage puts his coat on. The Warrior puts his green jacket on, leaves the area, walks out, and then you have Sensational Queen Sherry go in on just go in and just berate and batter and beating down Randy Savage. Kicks him, takes her little singlet off and just throws it at him. And then you have Miss Elizabeth, who has been watching this match from a farther distance in the crowd in the front row, just couldn't take it enough, and comes out from the barricade. Literally comes over the barricade, runs in, grabs Sherry's hair, and throws her out into the ring. And then you have Savage, who comes to himself and sees Miss Elizabeth just in tears and just wanting to reunite with this guy who she really cared a whole lot about and valeted for so long. And you see the crowd with every move. Everybody at their every move. Gorilla Monsoon, Lord Alfred Hayes, and you even had Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was just caught off guard by this. And keep in mind, Savage kicked Elizabeth off to the curb because he thought that she was in cahoots with Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan was trying to take his lady and whatnot, and that just led to her exodus, so to speak, from the WWE when she was in the neutral corner at WrestleMania 5 when the Mega Powers collided. So that was really, WrestleMania 6 was around the last time we saw Elizabeth, because she made that appearance once again against Randy Savage, but it was with Dusty Rhodes and also Sweet Sapphire. Remember, Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire. Just in their corner. So this was really within almost a year since we had last saw her. And to see that emotion from the crowd and not knowing what's going to happen next. And then all of a sudden you have Savage turn around. Everybody thinks he's probably going to deck her and thinks that it was Elizabeth who was attacking him. Then only to see that Elizabeth kept saying that he's a loser and a loser. Not Elizabeth, but Sensational Queen Sherry kept saying that you're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser outside, and pointing at him while Earl Hebner and the rest tried to get her out. He finally comes to the realization that Elizabeth is there, and she's there to help him as much as she can after seeing what happened to her. And you see them reunite, and Savage, it's just fantastically done. But Miss Elizabeth just puts her hands up. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I love you. I genuinely love you. And then she's not saying it, but she's feeling that. It just sounds like a soap opera, doesn't it? I'm into it. And you have Savage, who just looks at her, doesn't know what to do, and this just opens his hands up and he tries to say, "Come here, I'll embrace you." And then they both hug each other really tightly and hard. You see tears throughout the dark crowd, throughout the front row. People are bawling out, crying. Absolutely great storytelling. If you have the Coliseum video edition of WrestleMania 7, you see some behind the scenes stuff with Mean Gene Okerlund and Elizabeth and Randy Savage. You also see right during the intermission portion, right after intermission, you see Lord Alfred Hayes basically state that, man, this is the most touching thing I've ever seen. Fantastic. It put a standstill to the whole show to me. And I thought WrestleMania 7 was a really good card, especially given the circumstances that was going on. It could have been in the Coliseum. Who knows what the reaction would have been then, but just seeing the legit, genuine emotion from fans, and even as a kid, because I saw this on pay-per-view too, even I shed a little tear. I mean, this was fantastic. Absolutely well done. Told a great story. And if you stop WrestleMania 7 right there, I don't think anybody would say they were not satisfied. That was a fantastic moment, fantastic show, fantastic match. Everything you need in pro wrestling, and even subsequently what you would see in pro wrestling with all the crazy storylines and the love fests and whatnot. Good stuff. Good stuff. All of which, once again, that leading, although Savage had lost the King title and lost his career, he became Macho Man again. And it would lead to SummerSlam 91's A Match Made in Heaven. Not the match made in hell, but the match made in heaven when they got married. And that led to Undertaker and Jake the Snake crashing the party and whatnot, but that's on another tangent. But once again, great storytelling leading into the match, great storytelling during the match. Misconceptions throughout for the Ultimate Warrior. Once again, I don't know where all these come from. People just really bothers me when I hear a lot of bad talk about the Warrior in terms of his in-ring prowess and also the character itself. One of the most over guys in WWE history. There's a reason why WWE wants him back. The reason why he's done the WWE 14 commercials. There's a reason why he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame this year coming up. He made an impact. Very strong impact and indelible. And that's the reason why he's in 2 of my top 10 matches of WrestleMania history. He left an indelible mark on me. He's done that for a lot of other people too. So now I'm going to go to my number 3 on my countdown, which is WrestleMania 3. A lot of people still have this rated at their number 1 WrestleMania match, and I cannot disagree with them at all. If you feel this way, you have a very, very strong opinion toward that, and I cannot refute it because a lot of people feel this way and still do. 1987's Match of the Year from Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and also one of the best matches of all time, WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental Championship in the WWE, featuring then WWE Intercontinental Champion Macho Man Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth against the challenger Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with George the Animal Steele in his corner. Wow, what a match. What a match that redefined wrestling, pro wrestling, and educated the WWE masses, the fans, and also the brass behind the scenes of what a very fast tempo, great storytelling, and innovative match can do for a brand. This match was just as, if not more important to the WWE, in my opinion, for the longevity of the company as Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant was at WrestleMania 3 as well, which was the showcase at the end. This was the first time that WWE fans were able to see a match of this caliber. The near falls. I mean, you hear Chris Jericho, John Cena, and the Hardy Boys, and countless others tell you that this match is what really pushed them to be wrestlers and to pursue a career in such a practice. They gave you something different. They moved around like cats in a ring. Very smooth. Just very vibrant. And you could hear Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura, who were doing commentary, were having the same kind of emotion conjured up in them. Jesse Ventura said, this is one of the best matches I've ever seen, Gorilla. And then Gorilla said, basically says, well, there's no one in the world that will be able to refute that, because the near falls, people didn't see near falls like this, unbelievable near falls with storytelling. But besides the match itself, let's go into everything prior to the match. Randy Savage had very, very ferociously damaged the throat of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, a crushed larynx pretty much, and just a messed up. Just everything was messed up around his neck. WWE sold it so much that during promos for doctor visits that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat had attended, because of the neck injury. Savage coming down all the way down from the top rope to the outside, while Steamboat's neck was literally on the barricade, and all that force of Savage's double X handle literally crushed the throat of Ricky Steamboat, so to speak, storyline wise. So WWE showed countless vignettes during late 1986, in early 1987, of Ricky Steamboat going to this doctor, this specialist, to learn how to speak again. And he would be like, he would talk like that, and it got you emotionally invested. All of these matches on the countdown, any match you have on a countdown, you should be emotionally invested in it prior to even the match taking place. There should be something about that match that makes you care and want to see it. The premise of that match made you care. Randy Savage knew that Steamboat was his #1 threat to the Intercontinental Championship. He wanted to eliminate him. Jack Tunney and Nebraska wanted to give Ricky the Dragon Steamboat this last shot, this one shot at becoming the champion. And he became the champion with an inside cradle. Absolutely fantastic. It's amazing to me why you don't see that finish a lot anymore in wrestling. Just don't see it. It's crazy. But he won on an inside cradle. And Savage and Steamboat just made magic that night. They stole the show. And it's without a doubt one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. It was flawless. There were no mistakes in that match. Everything, every move had a purpose. Every near fall had a meaning. And every ounce, every minute that they gave you in that match is a minute to cherish. And even while watching it now, it looks like it fits in, doesn't it? It looks like a lot of the fast-paced matches that you might see even today. That's how revolutionary it was. And for that reason alone, and also for the fact that I can just put it in the VHS for WrestleMania 3, which I have, and look at it from beginning to end, but make sure that I look at the Steamboat versus Macho Man Randy Savage match a little bit more carefully, critique it a little bit more than I did the previous time, to learn every one of the nuances of it. That's what makes it one of my favorite matches of all time, and #3 on the countdown. Well, thank you for tuning in so far, and I have 2 more left on the countdown to get to, and it's going to be very interesting what comes out of my mouth, so to speak, in regards to these top 2 on the countdown. I not only consider these 2 the best matches in WrestleMania history, but I also arguably consider them one of my top 10 matches in WWE history, period. And I'll be right back in a short. Hello again, peeps and peepettes, and welcome to the finale of Spec Commentaries number 16, featuring my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. Thank you very much for staying in there with me and looking and really trying to analyze my top 10 with me as well. And it's a treasure trove of WrestleMania matches that I've already named out, and I'm going to do that again right before I get to my #1 and #2 selection. I'm going to go from number 10 to number 3 just to reiterate it and keep a little good even flow here for those who are wondering what my previous selections were if you're just tuning in. WrestleMania 20's triple threat match between Chris Benoit, Triple H, and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels is my number 10, with Benoit becoming the new the new World's Heavyweight Champion. Number 9 on the countdown, WrestleMania 3's WWF Championship between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, setting a new precedent in the WWE. Hulk Hogan leading the company into the rest of the 1980s. Also, you had WrestleMania 22's WWE Women's Championship match featuring Mickie James versus Trish Stratus, Mickie overcoming and becoming the new WWE Women's Champion. Number 7 on the countdown, WrestleMania 17x7, for a lack of a better term, the TLC 2 match between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys, once again captivating the masses, in which Edge and Christian, for the 3rd time within the span of a year, win and are victorious to become WWE Tag Team Champions. Also, we have the Iron Man match topping at number 6 between Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels and the then champion Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 12. Wow, what a match, what a story that was told. Both guys went 16 minutes, HBK overcoming in sudden death, but to become the WWE champion for the very first time in his illustrious career. Also at number 5, we have WrestleMania 6's The Ultimate Challenge between Hulk Hogan and then Intercontinental Champion the Ultimate Warrior, the Intercontinental Champion, and Hulk Hogan, the WWE Champion at the time. Hulk Hogan losing the championship to the Ultimate Warrior, the first time in WWE history that one guy is simultaneously the WWE Intercontinental and World's Heavyweight Champion at the same time. A phenomenal match, one of the best matches in WWE history. Oh, excuse me, I gotta say WWE Champion, not World's Heavyweight Champion. Different dynamic. Back then, I think you probably knew it. Now, number 4, also the Ultimate Warrior topping on this one as well. WrestleMania 7's career-ending match between the Macho King Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. Fantastic match, topped with a fantastic reunion between Miss Elizabeth and the Macho Man Randy Savage. And number 3 on the countdown, as specified earlier, WrestleMania 3's Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship match between the Macho Man Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth and him as the champion against the challenger Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with George the Animal Steele in his corner, and also Ricky the Dragon Steamboat overcoming and to become the new WWE Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. A short reign, but a very memorable one to say the least, in which he did capture the title from Randy Savage in what has been arguably one of the top 3 WrestleMania matches, if not the top WrestleMania match of all time. Readers and listeners of Pro Wrestling Illustrated voted that match in 1987 as the match of the year. And also, number 2 on my countdown now, going for number 2 and then number 1. Number 2, featuring the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, or as I like to commonly say, correctly speaking, WrestleMania 25. What were you thinking, WWE? It's WrestleMania 25. Stop trying to change stuff like you want to do. WrestleMania 25 in Houston, Texas. What a fantastic match. I mean, wow. Probably one of the best matches in WWE history, without a shadow of a doubt. It's in my top 10 as best match in WWE history. You want to talk about the counters back and forth between Randy Savage and Rick the Dragon Steamboat. Well, this took it to another level, a completely different level. The last 10 minutes of that match, if you had a pro wrestler that was just starting and wanted to know the business, what it takes to be great at your craft, the sacrifices you have to make in order to get there, and what makes a great match in terms of psychology, great in-ring work, great storytelling, fantastic characters going back and forth at each other, that each fan in that building can adapt to and emotionally invest themselves into. The last 10 minutes between The Undertaker and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, I'll show them that tape. That's how great that match was, how believable that match was with the ending. You had Shawn Michaels, who never gave up, never gives up, has a heart of a lion, and you have The Undertaker, who's just the same way, hard to put down, hard to stay down. He doesn't lose to people, very seldomly does he, but both guys refuse to lose, and it both fit within the confines of their characters throughout their entire careers, never giving up, striving to be the best. Who's going to break? And then we saw The Undertaker, not one, not two, but 3 tombstones within the span of about a 10-minute stretch. And it wasn't any tombstone. He literally took that tombstone and jumped up and did the tombstone. Hey guys, Shawn Michaels 1, 2, 3. Wow, what a match. I had an opportunity to watch that match again about 6-7 months ago, and it's still fresh in my mind. I got the WrestleMania collection by The Undertaker, his 20-0 collection. Now, I've seen that match from that DVD at least 3 or 4 times and watched it from different perspectives with people, with friends, by myself, and the same reaction continues to come out of that match. Awesome. I don't need to see anything else in this entire show, in the show right now, which is what they should have done. It should have been the main event of the whole show, because that Triple H and Randy Orton match was such a dud and useless and meaningless. Boo, and it shouldn't have been, but it was. That match should have main evented the show. What a fantastic card. Excuse me, what a fantastic match that was on a very, to me, lackluster WrestleMania card. stole the show and may have stole the decade. That's how great that match was. Their second match is good too, but it doesn't compare to the very first one. You had cameraman who was Sam Sticka, who did a horrible job of trying to protect the Undertaker when Undertaker made that dive out. You had Shawn Michaels come up. I mean, the entrances were just fantastic. Came out as if he was God descending from the heavens, and had his white and his gold on, and had the Texas hat on, and only to try to like hoax the Undertaker. And then you had the Undertaker come out and his arrangement, just wow. And then the genuine emotion and the reactions at the end of WrestleMania 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, between both guys, and the eyes of the Undertaker just looking in the daze like, what the hell that have I done to overcome this? And keep in mind, if you look prior to all of this, the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had a lot of different matches that were revolutionary. They had the first Hell in a Cell match, and it seemed like every time Undertaker and Shawn Michaels faced each other, Shawn Michaels became the victor. Royal Rumble 1998, the same thing happened. Shawn Michaels lost that match against the Undertaker, and that casket match, and still remained WWE champion. So I know this. I mean, the confines of the storyline, very gratifying for the Undertaker. But man, I have a couple of friends, very close friends, who were actually there live. I couldn't imagine how it was live compared to watching it at home. The announcing by Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, and I believe even Michael Cole was there as well, a part of it. Wow, it still sends shivers up my spine every time I think about that match and look at that match. It just, wow. Match went around about 30 plus minutes, but it wasn't the longevity, it was the storytelling between two pros. Just, wow. False finishes, HBK hitting Sweet Chin Music and not winning, Undertaker two songs. I need to say more. You ever get that kind of reaction out of me, especially as a skeptic in this age of pro wrestling, especially mainstream wrestling, it did something right. So now I've discussed 10 through 2 very thoroughly in detail. I have given you my emotion all the way from the triple threat match at the beginning of WrestleMania 20, that's my number 10, to number 2 WrestleMania 25. Undertaker, I believe, going 17-0, defeating the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels in an epic match. Both Texans coming home, and just fantastic match. And now number 1 on my countdown. And as I was discussing this with some friends not so long ago, this match has actually been my favorite WrestleMania match that I could definitively say has been my favorite match. I would say for the last 5 years. And I'm going to tell you why. Everything that I've spoken about earlier, this match has. The psychology, the emotion, the pageantry, emotionally invested as a fan, perpetuating careers going forward, both guys. But making this number 1 not only has all of these, but it exemplifies something even greater. The beginning of a new era. And the transition from the old to the new, while making the old very credible, and also making the old very relevant to the new beginning, to the new era. And that match occurred in 1997 in Chicago, Illinois, at the Rosemont Horizon in suburban Chicago, site of WrestleMania 2. And it was a submission match that was no holds barred, no rules pretty much. Ken Shamrock, the Ultimate Fighter at the time, one of the best Ultimate Fighters in the history of UFC, was scheduled to be the and was the referee of record. official record. And it pitted Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart. Need I say more? There's a reason why this is number one, and those reasons that I mentioned before, yes. But by the time Austin's music hit, and that glass broke, Austin was already somebody special. This is what helped make him legendary. He's a new, pretty much you're looking at Stone Cold Steve Austin starting to get cheers, although he's a bad guy, for at least the last 6-7 months. Fans just love him. He's trying to be the most vulgar cat in the world. He's not nice to anybody. But society is changing. Society is more alternative. Society is moving away from grunge and becoming a little bit more heavy. People have attitudes now, and people are starting to like it as fans. And Stone Cold exemplified that more than anybody. He didn't give a damn who you were or where you were. He was just going to kick your butt. He didn't care if you was a heel. He didn't care if you were babyface. He reminded you a lot in that regard of Bad News Brown, a rebel without a cause. And in this case, I guess you can really say he was a rebel with a cause. He wanted to show Bret Hart that I don't give a damn who you are, I'm seeking you out. And their feud began prior to Survivor Series in '96. And ironically, apparently, after reading his book and also listening to commentary and having that backed up by credible sources, Bret Hart picked Austin. He wanted to help make Austin really big and really over. And Austin, in return, wanted that rub off. He's just coming off winning the King of the Ring, the famous Stone Cold promo to Doc Hendricks, aka Michael Hayes, and all of a sudden he's in this match at Survivor Series in New York City in Madison Square Garden with Bret Hart. Bret Hart overcomes and wins clean, but Austin walks away. And then when the Royal Rumble came up in 1997 in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome, Bret Hart literally throws Stone Cold Steve Austin out, but the rest didn't see it, and then Stone Cold comes back, throws Bret Hart out, and obviously wins the Royal Rumble and becomes the number one contender to the WWE Championship. Only to have controversy spear when Bret Hart, and this was the time Bret Hart, the perception of Bret Hart with the fans started to change. They wanted to boo him. They liked Austin so much. The one thing the fans don't like is a babyface that cries and whines and complains. They like babyfaces that go out there and get the job done, even if circumstances prevent them from becoming the victor of the match, that are illegal. Like somebody coming from behind you and hitting you in the back of the head with a chair or something. They don't like to hear their baby faces complain. So Bret Hart kept whining and complaining and moaning and just crying about everything. And everything really culminated in two different fashions. In Your House. And back in 1997, I believe it was in February, literally right after the Royal Rumble. And it was a 4-way match for the WWE Championship, and then Bret Hart actually wins the match, becomes WWE Champion, loses against Sid the next day because of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that led to Bret Hart whining and complaining again about Austin, calling him a hyena and whatnot. And then you have Vince McMahon who's in the middle of it and saying, man, there's nothing I can do. And it's like really the first hint that you got that Vince McMahon was the owner of the company, if you didn't know and you thought he was just an announcer like I did for several years. And you see a match between, if I'm not mistaken, between Bret Hart and The Undertaker. And I want to say that was the one that was in the cage match. And you had Stone Cold once again screwing Bret Hart out of his chance to be the WWE Champion. And I want to say that was the match. I'm not completely sure, but I know it was a Raw. And anyway, Bret Hart winded up in the ring, basically telling Vince there's no justice in here. And he went off a tangent, a cursing tangent that no one had ever heard or seen before on WWE programming. Austin didn't even go to this level. And then you had Austin basically telling Bret Hart that he's a crybaby, and then you had Sid basically doing the same thing. And everything culminated with Bret Hart pushing Vince McMahon down on the floor. The first time any wrestler had been really physical with Vince directly. You know, Vince had been shoved and stuff accidentally before and punched accidentally like Piper did to him way back in '91 with his feud with Flair. You saw stuff like that, but you never saw Vince really get shoved by a wrestler. And for fans to see that, he started to get booed. People started to boo the heck out of Bret Hart. So then we fast forward to WrestleMania 13 to give you that backstory. You have Austin versus Hart in a submission match, no holds barred. They beat the hell out of each other by the time the bell rung, and it continued throughout the crowd. The storytelling here is fantastic. We see Bret Hart like a savage. You cost me the WWE Championship. He's mad at Shawn Michaels for his so-called pussyfoot injury. And then you have Austin continuously coming back and coming back. And then it all leads to Austin hitting the barricade and hitting a timekeeper and hitting a bell. And he is busted open from temple to temple. I mean, it was blood all over the place. Very sick and grotesque. And then you have Austin just giving him the finger and whatnot and say, come and give me some more. And then you had the bell with Bret Hart, and he's trying to wrap Austin with a cord outside the ring, one of those big monitor cords. And then you had Bret Hart put him in the sharpshooter. And then Austin raises up and the blood is just flowing. This is fantastic imagery and camera work. Blood's just flowing through his temple and his forehead, all over the place. And he passes out due to the pain being way too difficult to sustain. Boom. Austin's man. And Bret Hart, in classic fashion, and you can't make this stuff up, just actually classic fashion, continues to kick a man while he's down. And kicked Austin repeatedly. And Tim Shamrock says, if you don't stop, I'm going to get you off of him. And Shamrock basically does a belly to, I won't say belly to belly, but it's more like a belly to back drop on Bret Hart. And then goes into shoot fight mode and say, you want to come get some, I'm not afraid of you. You will respect me in this ring. And Bret Hart, as a coward, just walks away from Shamrock. And then walks away and gives the middle finger to the fans of Chicago, who first gave him the middle finger back. And then we see Shawn Michaels. Then we see Stone Cold Steve Austin slowly get up, and Mike Chioda comes in there to see if he's okay. And Austin, who doesn't want any help, stuns Mike Chioda, finds a way to get outside the ring, and walks right back to the locker room and takes his pride with him, so to speak, as Vince McMahon had said verbatim. That he never seen somebody so absent, so stubborn, so proud, take that sort of pain and not give up. He said he never saw it before in his life. And the way Vince had just described that just made you just chills up your spine. And also, he said, well, he'll take his pride and go back to the locker room. And the fans during this whole time are really cheering Austin and giving him a huge ovation. And he literally walks himself back to the ring. And then right after all of that, you hear Jim Ross basically say that he never saw anything like that before. And you see the face of the King, he never saw anything like that before. And Vince is just shocked. And then you hear JR say that the guts and the testament to that athlete says something like that. It's just sure amazing and awesome. It shows you the will of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He never quit. He never gave up. And the next night, it's basically switched. Bret Hart's a full-fledged heel. Reunites Davey Boy Smith and Owen Hart eventually. And the Hart Foundation is formed. And he hates America and says that Canadian fans and South African fans in Germany and some other countries around the world are the fans that he loves and will stick by. And Austin becomes this mega face and he never looked back. So that's the reason why that's number one. All of that occurred, everything from beginning to end, it made you emotionally invested in the product. It set up the Attitude Era. Ken Shamrock was established. Bret Hart was reestablished. Stone Cold Steve Austin was reestablished. Everybody that was involved in that match was directly affected by that match in some way. And not enough gets talked about in terms of Ken Shamrock. He did a fantastic job officiating that match. Stayed out of the way, did not make it about him. and really, really told a great story as a referee. As if he was the only guy that could really officiate the match, appointed by Gorilla Monsoon to do it. And can't say much about WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. For the last 5 years, has been my top WrestleMania match. It's going to take a whole lot for something to overcome that. Hopefully, as WrestleMania 30 will approach, we can start creating new memories. And I challenge the WWE out there, produce better cards than what you have for the last several WrestleManias. People don't want to see Rock and Cena. People don't want to see retreads and stuff like that. They want to see very, very compelling wrestling that's going to make them emotionally invested. And there's only one match to me that can really do that. Daniel Bryan, 2 matches. Daniel Bryan and HBK, which has been rumored. And the second one would be The Undertaker versus John Cena. Those matches will emotionally invest you into it. Who's going to win? Who's going to overcome? How many great performances are we going to see within the match? We need to see something like that. Will Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins overcome? Will the WWE put a lot of stock into their mid-card? What's going to occur at WrestleMania 30? To me, they should be answering these questions instead of bringing guys like Hulk Hogan back and inserting him with guys who could have a much better rub by simply showcasing their crafts without the handcuffs being over them. Every one of these matches that I have listed right here in very grave detail and listed, even with my signature right here, and also the date in which it was done with the company insignia as well, all specify that. Guys were given an opportunity to succeed, and were giving an opportunity to be the best at their craft, to tell a great story, and to leave an indelible mark on the business and in the consciousness of those fans that witnessed the match itself. That's why these are the top 10 matches of all time at WrestleMania for me. Starting at number 20 with WrestleMania 20, Chris Benoit, HBK, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. WrestleMania 3, WWF Championship match, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. WrestleMania 12 at number 8, WWE Women's Champion, WrestleMania 22, at number 8, WWE Women's Title, Mickie James versus Trish Stratus. Also, WrestleMania 17 at number 7, TLC 2, the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys, phenomenal match. Number 6, WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match, HBK versus Hitman. HBK becomes WWE Champion for the first time. WrestleMania 6, The Ultimate Challenge, Hulk Hogan versus The Ultimate Warrior. IC Champ versus WWE Champ, Warrior prevails. WrestleMania 7, also another Warrior match, career-ending match. Macho King Randy Savage, versus The Ultimate Warrior. The Macho King becomes the Macho Man, although he loses to the Warrior. And also you have WrestleMania 3 at number 3, the Intercontinental title match between Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat, 1987 match figured by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and also one of the top WrestleMania matches of all time by all critics, set new standards, and it also set off a new era of pro wrestling that can be very fast-paced but very, very compelling. WrestleMania 25, the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, tops at number 2. HBK versus The Undertaker. Undertaker becomes 17-0 at WrestleMania, and also signifies his legacy as the best WrestleMania performer in history. What a fantastic match. And also number 1 for the last 5 years for me, and also for the first time announcing this via video recording, WrestleMania 13's classic submission match, also within the confines of no holds barred rules, featuring Ken Shamrock as the special referee, special official assigned for the match. Hitman Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Still going to take a lot for me to overtop that match. That match was very special and very good and very worthy of number 1 on my list. So I challenge each and every one of you. This is just not about me, as I'm going to literally put this back in my binder. This is a challenge for you. Let me know, what are your top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches of all time? And don't just list them. Explain why they're your favorite top 10 matches. Why? What about those matches that made you care enough to put them on the list? What about those matches that made you a fan, not only of the business, but the match itself and the wrestlers that were in it? Because something had to do that in order for you to have that on the list. Something about that match had to get underneath your skin and make you really love this business that you look at. What about those matches made you care? So this is a challenge for you. These are my top 10. Where are yours? I am B-Spec, aka Spec Son of B-Spec Productions. Thank you very much for tuning in to Spec Commentaries number 16, featuring my top 10 of WrestleMania matches of all time. It has indeed been happening, as late Gorilla Monsoon states. Thank you very much for tuning in, and also make sure you tune in to my webpage, www.facebook.com/bspecprod. A lot of discussions going on right there regarding pro wrestling and also of all entertainments, especially music related, electronic music, which is another one of my passions that I discuss rigorously on that website. And moreover, thank you for tuning in, and please check out allowwrestling.com, all your news for pro wrestling, and also the crazy banter between Jack and 1-Inch Bicep, President Clinton, and all the other friends that I have had over the years. Thank you very much for your friendship, and also make sure you tune in to give them the support that they need every Wednesday, 8:05 Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on allowwrestling.com. And also, without further ado, I can't forget my friends over at the Dangerous Alliance, the DA page over on Facebook, and also on our website, www.thedangerousalliance.com. Make sure you tune in to that to see all the projects that we're doing, and also become part of the DA. If you're going to become a part of the DA, you better like pro wrestling, and you better support independent wrestling too, which really is the lifeblood of this business. It's the heart of the business. And we've been very, very privileged to have seen a lot of shows around the Charlotte area support Pro Wrestling Experience, PWX. Remember that, those initials, PWX, Pro Wrestling Experience. So, without going on any further tangent, thank you very much for tuning in to Spec Commentaries number 16, featuring my top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time, challenging you to showcase yours. Thanks, peeps and peepettes, and I'll see you next time on Spec Commentaries. Be spectacular.